Greetings Exiles, BullShifters here back with another Path of Exile PS4 video. Today I just wanted to do a brief update video on my build. As many of you know, I have been running a Slayer build, a Cyclone Life Leech build, that I've been kind of tweaking and changing a bit here and there as the season progresses. As of right now, I'm still only level 85, although I am finding leveling to be a bit easier as I've made a few improvements to my build. One of the big ones was I was actually fortunate enough to be donated a 6-link chest piece. Very, very nice of the person who went ahead and donated that. SPL, big shout out to you. So as you can see here, this gives me a 6-link on my Cyclone now. I'm running melee physical damage support, which is, straight physical damage. Brutality support, which is also giving me more physical damage. It's taking away any elemental damage, but considering this is a strictly physical build, that's not really an issue. I have pulverized support, which is giving me more of an area of effect. It slows down my attack speed slightly, but it's worth it for the extra area damage and area of effect, and also the melee area damage. Infused channeling, another great skill gem to support any channeling skill such as Cyclone. And Impale support. I've actually leaned a bit heavier into the Impale nodes, as you'll see when we go ahead and check out the passive skill tree. Still, I believe this is the same sash I was running last time, just a lot of life, some resistances. The energy shield doesn't matter, that's a bit of a wasted stat to be honest, but the increase to physical damage is nice. The resistance is nice. I added a bit of strength onto it. I don't believe I had that on there previously. I've replaced the unique boots that I had earlier, strictly because I changed up my skill gems a little bit. So these are adding strength, armor, life, some resistances. It's giving me maximum movement speed on boots, which is 30%. I get some stun block recovery, not a huge deal, but you're not always going to get perfect rolls on all of your items. I believe these are the same gloves that I was using before as well. Just some extra life, mana, the accuracy rating, not really important with this build, but still not the worst thing to have. And just stacking some resistances on that as well. Rocking the same amulet, just strength and intelligence. Strength because it adds to life and physical damage. Intelligence just because I do have some blue gems that require a certain amount of intelligence to actually use. The energy shield is admittedly a wasted stat. Fire and cold resistance important. Cold damage leached as life is a bit of a wasted stat. The 3 life gain for each enemy hit by my attacks. I'm maximized out on leech life just based off of my skill nodes, so that may be a bit wasted as well, and some maximum life. So in all honesty, this is probably my next piece of gear to replace would be my amulet. My rings are where things get a little interesting. You'll notice I'm running a shaper ring here, and there's a reason for that. I have a Mark of the Elder Steel ring. So it's adding a pretty minuscule amount of physical damage to my attacks, which isn't exactly why we're using this. A 20% chance to trigger a level 20 Tentacle Whip on kill. Not bad at all to have. The cold damage to attacks, it's wasted just because of the fact that we're obviously not doing any cold damage with our Cyclone. The maximum energy shield, not the greatest either. We do get an increase to maximum life, which is nice. Now here's the kicker and why we're actually using this ring setup. 70% increased attack damage if your other ring is a shaper item, which is why we're using a shaper ring. So this is giving me some nice resistances all around, adding to my maximum life, and also adding to my dexterity strictly because it's a stat that I require for my build. So essentially I'm running these 2 rings to get that 70% increased attack damage between the 2 of them. Just something I wanted to experiment with, and it does seem to have increased my damage output pretty decently. So my helmet, I believe this is also the same as what I was running before, just a lot of life and armor being added to my build, which is super nice. Some resistance, the stun and block recovery, again, not huge. The intelligence is strictly for gem requirements, and the strength, again, for attack and life. Still using the Kondo's Pride blade. In retrospect, I probably would have been better off using a 2-handed axe for this build. However, this 2-handed blade still gets the job done. Really nice physical damage, and a few different modifiers that'll help me out a little bit if I do end up causing any bleeding. My chest piece, there's not a ton of modifiers on this chest piece, and that's because of the fact that I actually crafted it from scratch. Well, I recrafted it. Originally only had 2 modifiers on it, so I scoured that down and went ahead and managed to get some extra strength, some increased armor and evasion, some nice resistances, and crafted on a bunch of life, just because it's kind of what my build really needed at this point, so that's what I went ahead and did. Still rocking 2 health flasks for, essentially when I have to pop those health flasks when I'm not leeching enough life, or if I don't run into enemies for a short period of time. Running a sulfur flask strictly for that increased damage, a quicksilver flask just for movement speed, so that way I don't necessarily have to spam my leap slam in order to get through maps, and I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, but the ball salt flask, and this is strictly just for some damage reduction. Damage reflected to your attackers is nice as well. This I may actually replace with an onslaught flask, strictly because of the fact that before I had a ring that was granting onslaught, so I may swap one of these flasks out for an onslaught flask to give me that increased attack speed and movement speed. Some other things to take note of: Lightning Golem was the same as it was before. However, now I'm actually running Flesh and Stone. And that's strictly, I can go into Sand Stance if I want to be a bit more defensive, and I can just go into Blood Stance if I want to go ahead and increase my physical damage, which is typically what I do. I'm also using the Pride aura now instead of using, I believe it was Vulnerability that I replaced this with, which made it so since Pride isn't a curse, I no longer needed those boots, which weren't really giving much of a benefit. So Pride is essentially increasing my damage to the point where vulnerability before was lowering my opponent's defense. So it's kind of doing the same type of ordeal. So it basically makes it so I could use a better pair of boots and just increase my stats that much more. My leap slam setup pretty much the same. I am still using Enfeeble, but it's now on a cast when damage taken support as opposed to being an aura. So that way, I get a little bit of a defensive boost as soon as I take 725 damage, which on this build isn't a significant amount. I usually like to run a cast when damage taken on level 4 or 5, just so it's something that I can cast multiple times, as opposed to having it require a few thousand worth of health in order for me to actually cast my skill. So that pretty much rounds out my my gems. Ancestral War Chief, which is causing bleeding, which will in turn give me the opportunity to so that was actually on my weapon itself, which can potentially give me increased melee damage. I won't leech while I'm crit striking, but it's not a huge deal because of the fact that my critical chance is so low with this build. And I'm also running Blood Rage, just to, essentially give me some increased attack speed, so that way I can leech a bit faster. Mainly use that for boss fights. I wouldn't really recommend it against mobs, and just increasing that duration for some of the longer boss fights. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the passive tree. So the biggest thing I've done here that's different, I've gone ahead and actually picked up some of the Impale nodes. Just because Impale gives this build a lot more potential for damage. Right now I'm slightly over 5100 health, which is okay. It's not stellar, but with the combination of having maximized resistances, that amount of life, and an okay amount of evasion and armor, it makes this build get by. I actually reinstalled the game today, and I'm going to be trying out to see if it actually decreases my lag, which seems to be a good portion of my deaths in this game so far. This league have been desync and lag issues. So I'm hoping this will kind of rectify that, and I'll actually get to see the true potential of this build. I don't struggle with white maps or yellow maps. Those are really kind of a cakewalk. As soon as I hit those red maps, though, with the large mobs, the game tends to kind of lag up for me, or my Cyclone just stops hitting, and I'm pretty much dead in the water because it's a leeching build, so it just kind of leaves me, out to dry and gets me killed. But that's essentially the build in a nutshell. I do still have to run my last lab which I may actually do during the stream tonight, and hopefully get that out of the way. I just hit my last trial of ascendancy during the last stream, so I'm very much looking forward to finally finishing out my ascendancy here, and grabbing this extra attack damage and this extra attack speed while leeching, which is also going to cause it so my leech life effects aren't removed while at full life, so I will still get those benefits while I'm at full life. So that kind of rounds out the build. Just thought I'd give you an update at this point as to where the build is. It's starting to feel a lot better, especially now that I have that 6 link. So as I mentioned, I'm looking forward to finishing that last lab, finishing out my ascendancies, and then kind of tweaking a few of these items. Like I said, replacing that amulet, probably tinker around with the rings still a bit more as well, and just hope to find some better items along the way as well. So hope you enjoyed this video. Just thought it'd be kind of fun to give everyone an update on the build. Hopefully this will kind of help you out as well. Just as a PSA, if you are having a lot of lag issues, per the video that I've seen from Kamal that a lot of other people have mentioned as well, go ahead, uninstall your game, reinstall, and see if it helps you out. Hopefully it does. I'm going to have a bit more of a critique tonight during my stream, so make sure not to miss that. And if it goes well enough, and it does seem like the lag has gone away well enough as well, I may make a comparison video kind of showing the difference of the lag before reinstalling and after reinstalling, just to kind of confirm Kamal's theory, and just kind of put that PSA out there for anyone who may have not seen his video. Obviously with full credit to him, because this is his fix that he's gone ahead and been gracious enough to share. So thanks again for watching this video. Hopefully I will see you all tonight during the stream, and until next time, may the RNG be with you always.